Hello, and welcome back to Civic Concord, a podcast where we share information, highlight important topics, and hear directly from people involved in town government. This is a Minuteman Media Network production. I'm here in the studio today with Aaron Miklosko, our Highway and Grounds Superintendent. Hi, Aaron.
Morning, Megan. How are you?
Good. So today we're here to talk about winter maintenance in Concord, and you did a presentation recently for staff, and I think you've done it for the Public Works Commission about the operation and what goes into winter storm preparation in Concord. So I'd like to talk about it here.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. So last month at the leadership management team for the town of Concord, I presented a PowerPoint presentation that gave an overview of the winter maintenance program in the town of Concord. We give a similar presentation annually to the Public Works Commission in November. Every year we have some new commissioners and new residents tune into the meeting, so we think November is a good time of year to remind people about the program, what we do, how to reach out for questions or support, and I think we get some pretty good feedback on the information that we provide. So.
Great. So when people think about winter maintenance, they think mostly, I think, about plows and salt. Can you describe what the program actually includes in Concord?
Yeah, so the program really focuses on the safety of the public, and our job in the wintertime is to make sure that the public right-of-ways are safe for travel. The town of Concord and Concord Public Works maintains public right-of-ways throughout the year. Most people think about road paving or patching. In the wintertime, our job is to make sure that those are clear of any ice and snow as much of the time as possible to allow for vehicle traffic, prioritizing kind of public safety response like police or fire and emergencies, and respond in those adverse weather events. So. Yeah, plows and salt are two things that we use, tools that we use, but it's much more than just the plows and the salt. It's really a pretty comprehensive program focused on planning, weather forecasting, developing a response plan, executing that plan, and then follow-up inspections of the roadway.
And so when we're talking about winter road maintenance, we're talking about the roads, but we're also talking about sidewalks and parking lots. So how much area are you working to maintain during the season?
So the Concord Public Works team really maintains all public rights of way in town. And what that includes is the roads that vehicles are traveling on, the sidewalks that abut the roads that are within the right of ways, and all town-owned parking lots. The town does also maintain a number of private roads in town as authorized by a previous town meeting authorization, and there's specific criteria those private roads need to meet. There's a few miles of those roads, but it's mainly the public roads and sidewalks and parking lots that the Public Works maintains throughout the winter season.
And so you mentioned the presentation in November, but when does planning really begin, or does it ever end, I guess, in the cycle of your work?
Yeah, it never ends, I guess. But really, like the planning focuses, everything kind of happens because it's funded, right? And so our planning really starts I would say July 1st is a good target when the fiscal year budget becomes available, and we start looking at procurement of materials and supplies that we need to complete the winter maintenance operations. We start looking at the plow routes and the people and equipment we'll have available, and really start developing our plan of what we're going to do that winter based on the resources that we have available. So summertime, we like to stay ahead of it. If you wait for the first snowfall to make your plan, it's way too late. So we do it when it's still ample time for us to make plans, adjust plans, and kind of fine tune before the first snowfall. We like to say we are ready for winter come October 15th. That's usually our operational target within the department.
One thing that I heard at the session the other day that makes a lot of sense, I just never really thought about before, was about the training that you do for your staff and the route planning and how long people, plow drivers, do the route. So it's not the first time they're seeing it in the middle of the night under tough conditions. Can you talk a little bit about what goes into making sure the staff is ready and prepared when a storm comes?
Right. I think in any job that anyone has, right, there's some type of a training component that's involved, and people need to know what is their job and learn their job. Every year we're looking at routes and assignments, and from year to year we'll reassign individuals to new routes, or we might have some new employees that come on board. And So we're not only looking at the route itself, the physical, the roadway and what's included and how many miles on each route, but we're looking at, who's assigned to that. And if we have somebody that's new, really we want them to drive the road and drive that route before the snow falls. It's much, paints a clearer picture. They're able to inspect the road for any defects or hazards potentially. They can get a good understanding of where to turn left, where to turn right, where can I turn my truck around that's safe and there's open space. So we train. We have a all hands meeting with anybody that's involved in the operation, usually in November. November or October, and then we assign routes and we give people opportunities to kind of take the vehicle that they're assigned to and drive their route and provide supervisors and staff with feedback on any obstructions that might be in the route. For example, if someone had a basketball hoop in the public right of way or some type of other hazard that could get damaged that shouldn't be in the right of way, they can make a note of it, and then the supervisor staff can then follow up with maybe the property owner to have them move that basketball hoop out of the right of way before the first snowfall, for example. So we like to get people familiar with their routes. Unfortunately, there are times when we might have to make changes, and the first time somebody sees a route is in the middle of a snowstorm when they get reassigned to a new route. But we try to give as much training and opportunity for people to learn their job before the snow actually flies.
And so one of the things I want to talk about today is some of the technology that you're using and how it can help make decisions in real time and for planning. So we use in Concord the road weather information system. Can you talk about what that is and what kind of data that gives you?
Yeah, so the road weather information systems are a kind of device that can be deployed out in the field, and it provides real-time data back to the municipality or whoever's collecting that information. So these are devices. They're used kind of throughout the country, a number of different, whether it's a municipality, state organization, private organization, and it essentially gives you it's a mini weather station with a camera, kind of in summary, right? And what it does is it gives us a real-time photo, a clear picture of what does the road look like. So if there's any snow maybe accumulated or rain, we can see that in the photo. It gives us an air temperature, a dew point, humidity, and a road surface temperature, which is a really important piece of information because you might have an air temps that are above and below freezing, and the road temp might either be above or below freezing, right? So it could be different, and it could be raining, but if the road temps are below 32, that rain hits the cold asphalt and it turns to ice immediately. That requires a de-icing operation. So it gives us a lot of good information and data that then we can use to make decisions based on data, not just assumptions or theories. So we've been using those now for maybe 5 or 6 years. We've had those units deployed. We have 7 of them out currently at strategic points throughout town. Main roadways, shaded areas, higher elevation, so that way we can see the different types of weather that we have in Concord. Concord is a pretty large town with different elevations, and it might be snowing, for example, up at Nurse Neck Hill, but down at the Public Works facility, it might just be raining still. So we know that if it's snowing in one location, we can put a targeted deployment of equipment at that location to start to clear the roadway or de-ice the roadway if needed.
Right, so if you didn't have access to this, you might just see that it's snowing in one part of town and then treat all the roads one way. But with this information, you can kind of do a more targeted approach in different sections of the town.
Correct. So we can do we can targeted approach, and it's like remote monitoring, right? So the only way without the cameras to see actual road conditions or get real road temperatures is to deploy a truck and a person to that location and kind of radio back what are the observations. So a number of our trucks are equipped with air and road surface temperatures monitors. So people, as they drive their vehicle down the roadway, it's collecting a real-time road temp and air temp, and they could radio that back. So that technology's been around for a while. It's great information that we use, but sometimes it could take half an hour to get from the CPW yard to the other side of town in West Concord, and to collect that information. Where now that we have a road weather information system device deployed in West Concord, I can see that real time. So it could save a half an hour of time to start to mobilize equipment. And then, like you said, we can do targeted approaches. So we might only need to treat a certain part of the town or start plowing in a certain part of the town and get a better response time and a better service for the customers and residents of Concord.
So if you know what the air temperature is and you know what the road temperature is, that can give you some information about how to treat it. But do you also get kind of predictions for, okay, like the road temperature is going down, so it's going to hit freezing at a certain point, or is that included kind of in this technology?
It is. The technology does have that capability and does provide us that information. We do also use a number of other forecasted weather services. The National Weather Service provides great forecasts for our area, and we actually have a custom weather forecast just for Concord. We have a meteorologist that the town contracts with, so provides a daily weather forecast and a real-time storm weather forecast for us. And we are able to call them during a storm and talk to a meteorologist live, during our operation, and that allows us to make decisions based on real-time forecasting from a meteorologist, which is very helpful. So, kind of collectively with all that information, we're making decisions for the operation based on the data that we're collecting from the devices, from the services that we're contracted and provided with, and then consultation with some weather professionals also.
So there's all different types of treatment methods. Salt, brine, sand. Do we use sand? Can you tell us, how do you decide what to use and when?
Yeah, so a number of treatment methods. In Concord, we use salt, road salt, and I would say that's a standard treatment for de-icing of roadways in the Commonwealth. The DOT uses road salt. A number of other municipalities in the area also use that. What that will do is that'll help us kind of de-ice the roadway. We will then use plowing as a means of physically removing maybe accumulated ice and snow from the roadway as well. When folks say kind of treated salt, that we use road salt treated with some type of a chemical. We use magnesium chloride. That kind of lowers the freezing point even more. And if we have extreme cold temperatures, we can use a treated salt to make our de-icing operation more effective for us. Those are the two primary. We also have capability of making brine, which is a liquid solution of salt and water, essentially, that we can apply to the roadways. Brine can only be used in specific kind of forecasted weather conditions where there's a high confidence of snow and no rain precipitation leading up to that snow event, because the brine needs to be applied hours or even days in advance on the roadways that are dry, and then the brine essentially dries out and leaves a salt residue on the roadway, and would then be a pre-treatment for any first early snow accumulation in a winter weather event.
So that's one way to pre-treat the roads. But if it's going to be icy, there's a pre-treatment of salt usually?
Correct. Yeah. So our typical operation is pre-treatment with salt at the beginning of a snow event. That helps to minimize the amount of snow that and ice that would maybe bind with the asphalt. Then as snow starts to accumulate to a plowable amount, we will deploy snow plows. That'll plow and remove the snow from the public roadway. And then at the end of the event, usually there's a residual amount of snow left on the roadway that can then freeze and create ice and create potentially unsafe situations. So we treat with salt at the end of the snowstorm as well to melt any of that ice or snow that might remain in the travel way of the roadway.
So for the people involved, can you talk a little bit about how many people are involved in a typical storm response, and what that coordination looks like?
So the folks involved, it includes myself as the superintendent. We also have an assistant superintendent, operations manager, and collectively, when we're watching weather forecasts, throughout the day and daily in the wintertime. If we see that there's a chance of a winter weather event, we'll start meeting and discussing our operation strategy. We're looking at who do we have for employees and contractors that are available to respond. The team, depending on the size of the event, it could be a response of maybe 4 or 5 people up to could be 40 to 45 individuals that will respond. Just depends on the size of the storm, the duration of the storm, and how we're gonna approach that. Every storm is different. There's no two exact weather events. There's Could be a mixed precipitation event. Could be like we had the last couple of nights, freezing rain. Could be all snow. Could be all the above. It could be a 6-hour storm. It could be a 48-hour storm. So every storm, our approach is a little bit different, and so we adjust and scale our response accordingly. But typically every response has a supervisor involved, a number of staff, equipment operators, plow operators, and mechanics is involved in the operation as well. We staff what we call the snow desk. It's essentially a public works dispatch where we staff that with an employee so that if residents or other departments have questions and need to contact Public Works, they will speak to a supervisor, a live person, and get kind of an immediate feedback, and we can respond to their situation timely.
What's the call volume on that? Probably gets a lot of calls on bigger events.
Larger events, we'll get more calls, questions, it might be, is trash delayed, or, somebody, my driveway might have been plowed in, or a mailbox was knocked over,
Okay.
or questions kind of along those are typical we would get, I'd say, from maybe residents and folks in Concord. We might get calls from other departments asking for assistance, or inquiries on what our plan is, and oftentimes it's what do you see for the weather forecast? When's the snow going to end, and what's the plan? Is a call as well. So that's typical. It kind of really depends. Some of the lighter, lesser impactful storms, less calls, longer
Yeah.
duration, more snow that accumulates on the side of the roads. We hear more calls.
You mentioned you have a mechanic on staff. What happens if something breaks down during the storm? I mean, I imagine it gets pulled and looked at, and then you have to adjust plow routes, or it depends on what it is.
That's correct. So, like any winter maintenance operation, there's a lot of equipment running. That equipment requires a significant amount of maintenance and investment from the town in order to stay in top condition for operations and remain reliable. But like anything, all equipment will eventually does fail or breaks, or it has issues. Snow plowing is very it's very strenuous on equipment. The way that it's ran, and just the operation, it takes its toll. These trucks and vehicles a lot of them they're designed for snow plowing, but they're also designed for other things too. So we have 3 mechanics in Highway and Grounds and in Public Works as a whole. A full response will have all 3 mechanics in and working during the storm, and when we have a piece of equipment go down, if it's able to be transported back to the shop on its own, we bring it back. If it's out of service on the road, we have it towed back. We'll bring it into the shop. We'll troubleshoot it and determine if we can make the repair immediately, and if so, we'll actively make that repair. We do have we have a great team that plans ahead. We have a lot of parts on order, common parts in stock available to us. We'll make that repair, get that equipment back on the road as soon as possible. If we're not able to get it on the road quickly, or it's a critical route that can't go a couple hours without a piece of equipment, we adjust our plan. So we'll either modify routes if we have a reserve piece of equipment that can do that job that out of service equipment was doing. We'll reassign equipment and reassign that operator to a new piece of equipment. Otherwise, we look at kind of dividing and splitting up plow routes or de-icing routes and having other vehicles and other staff kind of cover those, because the work still needs to get done. Just
Right.
because the equipment broke down, there's an expectation and a requirement that those roads still be de-iced and plowed. So we modify our plan throughout the storm.
I think some people might be interested in hearing about some of the metrics that you track before, during, and after the winter storms. I found it interesting at the presentation to see, we can, for every single event, you can say, this is how much salt was deployed, this is how much overtime or staff time that was used. Can you talk about the things that you track? And I guess I'm curious too, year over year, are we spending about the same amount, or have things changed? Are obviously some years are bigger years regarding snow maintenance, but what are some of the trends you're seeing?
So I'll start with some of the things that we track. We do track the materials we use, so the amount of road salt tonnage that we put out for each storm event, and then throughout the year we track our overtime hours, contracted hours, and other expenses related to each storm. We're tracking the weather as part of that. what were the temperatures, what was the wind speed, what's the accumulation total of the snow, what are we seeing for event, and we look back at that information throughout the year and year over year just to see, like, how are we trending and what are we doing. Our operation is pretty consistent with how our approach is. We're scalable. We have a scalable operation, like I mentioned earlier. So the more impactful, longer duration storms do cost more. But there is anytime that we're going into, let's say, a full de-icing operation, so where you're doing that pre-treatment or the roads are going to freeze up overnight, that's pretty much a fixed amount of, we know we're going to be calling in, let's say, 12 operators and 3 mechanics and a supervisor, at least one, and we're going to be treating, at least one time throughout the town. And there's a cost with that. And then if snow ends up coming behind that, we're bringing in more operators and we're plowing the roads until the snow stops. And then after the snow stops, we're treating again. So costs, we were seeing cost of materials have been going up year over year. Labor costs also go up year to year. We're not, our plan, we have our routes are, the number of routes we have are essentially been fixed for a number of years now. It's pretty good. We fine tune it a little bit every year. But the same number of people are plowing, again, the same amount of roads that we have. But we're definitely seeing an increase in the cost of the vehicles. So we use a lot of vehicles and equipment. All right, you can't really plow snow without those. So those are very expensive trucks. And, we do a very good job, I think, of being strategic. Our trucks are just not dedicated plow trucks only. They are hauling dirt and material and asphalt and debris for our other operations throughout the year. The same trucks that are plowing snow might be the ones cleaning the catch basins in the spring and the summertime.
I didn't realize that.
Or running a wood forestry chipping body on the truck as well. The loaders that are loading salt into the sanders and the spreaders are the same loaders that are doing construction work and throughout the year and used in other parts of the operation. So essentially, that equipment that is taking a toll in the wintertime is also used for other things, and that equipment is very expensive. We've seen prices escalate significantly in the last 5 years on that. So that's probably been the most dramatic cost increase that we've seen.
And so when you're doing a snow removal, for snow removal in the business districts would probably look different than residential areas. We're thinking about like crosswalks and that kind of thing. Like, can you talk about how you would, I think for the center you said sometimes the snow needs to be moved out because there isn't really anywhere to put it.
Correct. So, the terminology, snow plowing, looks very similar throughout town. So snow plowing is kind of what we think the classic. Hey, there's a truck with a plow in the front of it. It's pushing the snow from the road to the edge of the road. And then in like you mentioned, yes. So the business districts, we do snow removal and we haul snow from downtown. So Concord Center, the Row area, and in West Concord. We have a program where we do snow removal following significant snowfall, and what that consists of is an operation where we have specialty pieces of equipment in, taking the snow that's kind of accumulated along the edge of the road in the windrow at the curb line, and trucking that out of the area and placing it at one of our 2 snow storage lots that we use. And the decision to do that is based on a number of things. The forecast following the storm, how much snow is accumulated in the area, the time of the year. So we look at all of that because it is a costly operation. It's not done after every storm. Over the last 6 years, we might have done it once or twice per winter. Mm-hmm. Especially in the holiday season, when the businesses are very busy downtown, so that people can have an easier means of egress out of their vehicles and onto the sidewalks. We do snow removal from the all-town parking lots for every plowable event. So that is one thing where we really don't want to plow snow into a pile and take up any parking spots. Parking's pretty limited throughout town in those areas. So we do plow and remove snow from those lots after every storm.
And so if there's one thing you wish people understood more about winter maintenance, what would it be?
That it's dynamic. The response changes every storm. Like I said, every storm is different, and kind of the response plan is we have to be flexible because if If the storm is a long duration storm and we need people here for long duration events, it might just take us longer to get to kind of the fine details. Every storm, our objective is to make it as safe as possible, as much of the time as possible, as the weather allows us to do. And so the operation really includes, the pre-treatment, the snow removal, the plowing, a de-icing at the end of the storm. We plow, 44 miles of sidewalks, and we also shovel a number of the curb ramps at the crosswalks throughout town. That does take some time, and if folks are here for a long duration, it just might take a few more hours after the storm in order for us to get to the fine details and those final things like shoveling curb ramps. In addition to that, we also do some snow plowing and de-icing of some of the walkways in the parks, like Rideout and Emerson, and things like Junction Park and these other locations throughout town. Sometimes it just takes us a little bit longer to get to those locations, whether it's the next day after the last snowfall. That's just because we are limited by kind of the staff and the number of hours that we have available to us. There's only so many hours in the day and only so many staff available to do the work. So, but I would say that if people have questions, we do run the snow desk, and that.
What's that phone number?
It's 978-318-3220 is the Highway and Grounds phone number in Public Works, and that number also goes to the snow desk.
Okay,
so
got it.
If folks have questions kind of during the storm, they can reach out, call that number, and let us know that there's requests or something we need to respond to, and we're happy to follow up and do that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I feel like there's been a lot of ice so far. Recording this in kind of early January, and we'll see kind of what's in store for the rest of the winter.
Yeah, it's been busy. It's been a busy week so far, and we'll see how it goes. We're in that stretch where there's some years it doesn't snow up until January, and then we get a significant snowfall kind of later in January and February, and usually some in March and occasionally in April too. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.